Hello and welcome. I am the Suit&Tie, Dip&ChewGuy, and this is P.S.A. Public Service Announcement number 9. Yes, 9 of these already. So this will be going directly to the playlist Unlisted, but to a playlist and open to all that go to that playlist to look for it. So I'm going to be referring to some notes here because there's an increasing amount of numbers, as always, with these. And it will basically break down into 3 parts. News, which will be itself split to world and national, and then how you should decipher what people are saying, and then what you should be doing. So the news, national and international. Let's do international first. The global infection rate, the number of infected, is now at over 250,000. Okay? In the United States, the number is 19,624. It is jumping up. It has doubled, more than doubled in the last 6 days. That said, this is because testing kits are getting out and circulated and people are being tested. My guess is, if I had to put a number on it, I would say there are probably upwards of at least 60 to 80,000 infections in the United States alone. If I was going to put a number on it, at least. So China has reported the second day in a row having no new infections, and I do not believe it. They claimed it yesterday, and then they claimed it again today. The problem with this is there has been some social media posts that have escaped out of that country. One is people in Wuhan queuing up in front of one of their fever clinics at Wuhan Hospital. And there are dozens and dozens of them lined up outside of the street. That came out yesterday afternoon. This morning, a video on YouTube came out of construction workers in the middle of the night, local time in Wuhan last night, outdoor soccer stadium. The man was saying that by dawn they would have it completed and the new and yet another temporary hospital would be ready to go. And that is what they were building out there on a soccer field. So I don't believe that they don't have any infections. And really at this point, I don't believe anything they're saying. And I don't know why anyone would. Okay? They were lying from the get-go. All the stuff at the beginning, they've already been caught in the lie. So why some of our media thinks that, oh yeah, they lied then, but they're telling the truth now, is beyond me. I mean, that doesn't even make sense. I know. But I have a feeling that most people in the media know that it doesn't make sense. They just parrot it anyway. The other disturbing thing concerning China is that China Mobile, which is one of their main cell phone carriers in China, evidently lost upwards of 8.1 million customers in January and February. Switched carriers? Anyway, Italy last night had to dispatch its army to start picking up coffins in Milan. Lombardy is the district, the governing district that Milan is in. If you hear Lombardy mentioned, it is something akin to a state or a county or something in between the two. It's just an administrative district in how Italy split up. Anyway, they had to dispatch the army because the crematoriums and funeral homes could not deal with the continued flow of bodies. This morning, the Italian national government, their federal government, announced that the countrywide lockdown, which has been in place for better part of a week now at least, will now be enforced by the Italian army. The definition of that is martial law for the entirety of Italy. That all said, none of it really slowed down or helped anything in the end, because Italy today reported 627 deaths. The rest of Europe is not quite to that point, but they are starting to go down one by one. The cases are mounting and the bodies are also mounting. I believe the United Kingdom is up to about 80. Spain passed 1,000 deaths a couple of hours ago. And in general, the situation is, well, in Italy already out of control. Spain is almost to that point, and the rest of Europe looks like it is going to follow in short order. Nationally, we have 260 dead, up from 205 last night. There are 147 recovered fully. As I said, there are just a shade under 20,000 infections. If I had a gun to my head and had to throw out a number, I would say that I need a new light bulb, number one, and number two, that there's probably upwards of 60 to 80,000 cases in the country as of right now. The deaths are starting to mount, and it's not just Washington State anymore. There's close to 10 in Louisiana, Florida, New Jersey. New York has a serious problem. New York City evidently has up. I'm not sure if it's the city or the state is now reporting 7,000 plus cases. The National Guard has been dispatched to Baltimore. Whether they are actually on the streets yet, they are down there to support a citywide curfew. Right now, they are marshaling near the stadiums. This is after 2 days ago, the mayor of Baltimore made a plea to the city's residents to, quote, stop shooting each other. We need the beds for virus patients. Less than 48 hours later, the National Guard is marshaling by these stadiums. There are a couple points, bright spots in all of this news. One is the fact that the death rate in the United States is trending down. I don't know if it's trending as far down as the government is claiming, but it would appear that it is, even from my amateur position, trending down. It is under 2.0. That is good. The other one is hydroxychloroquine, sorry. Yeah, and I actually practiced that before this video, which is a derivative of even older medication, which is chloroquine. All right. So what it is it is a anti-malaria drug. It has been around for decades. And when I say decades, probably 90 years at least. I think maybe the 1930s. It would be seeming to have great effect in patients. And it's not only coming from this country, in Europe, in France, it is also having great effect. And there's been a couple of other places. I believe the South Koreans were using it. This is good news. Now, my only question when I first heard or started hearing about this was, yeah, but how much of it do we have? Well, evidently we do have a fairly good supply of it. In general, it is something that is carried in hospitals. I know this because, as it turns out, due to a muscular disease that he had a problem with in the 2000s, my father was actually given this at one point at our local hospital. Also, there are companies, pharmaceutical companies, stepping forth offering supplies. The one company is offering 130 million doses available immediately, or as fast as they can be transported. So this is obviously all good news. However, I am noticing online and in other places that people are like acting like this is some sort of get out of jail free card. Oh, we're saved. Don't think that. We are not saved. Don't go there. It is a bright spot in a very dark sky, okay? We are not sitting out sunning ourselves on a sunny day. It is just a little light patch up there off to the side, and it may move closer or it may move farther away. It is not a, oh, thank God we're saved. God did not intervene on our behalf with chloroquine. Okay, so it is good news, and hopefully more will be known by the next video I make of this, but I would not, take off your gloves and go hand walking around in a Walmart right now. Probably a bad idea. So, there was some other national news. New York is now basically in a state of lockdown. New York State and definitely city. Okay. California, yesterday, the governor had a press conference, which was somewhat disturbing, to say the least. Basically, California, the entire state, which is the largest and most population-wise largest state in the country, is sheltering in place. That basically what the 6 counties and the city of San Francisco had from earlier in the week, the shelter-in-place order, the entire state has now. All right? But the most disturbing thing about this press conference was that the governor stated that they had to try to slow the spread so they could flatten the curve that I talked about in the last video, because he expected in the coming weeks half of the state's population, half of California's population, to become infected. That is somewhere in between 24 and 25 million people. Let's say it's 24. Let's take the low number. Half of the population is 24 million and it gets infected in California. We get the death rate with some of these new treatments down to just 1%. That is still a ridiculous number. All right, you're talking 240,000 people dying. So, that is the world and national news. And now, what you should be listening to and what you should not be listening to. Okay, number one, the media in general, for the most part, with the exception of Fox News and a couple of smaller outlets like One American News, Newsmax. Don't listen to any hysterics from any of the media, because what really they're pushing at the end of the day here, and have been, and anybody watching the press conference today will see it clearly, because they got it so stirred up at the White House today that the little doctor, he started getting agitated. And that guy's about as mild-mannered as they come. So they're going to be in hysterics because they want to promote that idea and that the government response is not what it needs to be. Basically, this is just the newest Russia collusion, Ukrainian collusion. Trump's now just colluding with a virus. Okay, so that's all that is, with the exception, obviously, of Fox News, One American News, Newsmax, etc. So don't listen to any of that. As far as the government goes, whatever guidelines they are giving you, and this is at all levels, whether it be federal, state, or local, whatever guidelines they are telling you, you need to follow, okay? And that should be your baseline of what you should be doing. Anything on top of that is bonus round, and you add bonus rounds on as you please, as you see fit, depending where you are in the country. Are you rural? Is the population higher? So follow any government instruction as the base bottom line of what you should be doing, and then add on what you see as fit after that. As far as what the government is saying, news-wise, like what they are telling us. Okay, they're telling us to wash our hands, social distancing, da-da-da-da. Okay, that's all good. Do what they're saying on that. As far as why they're telling you to do that, that's where it gets a little sketchy with government. That's where it gets a little sketchy with federal government. All right? You have to understand that they are walking a very fine line in between keeping people safe from the virus and causing people panic, in which people may lose their lives just in that panic. Okay? So I'm not completely, I'm not just sitting here going, the government's lying to you. They're lying. This is an elitist plan to cull the world's population. I'm not saying that at all. All right? This isn't some conspiracy theory. It's just they have a very, very tough job to do. All right? The Trump White House, the team that he has put together, the governors, whether they be Republican or Democrat. The gentleman in California I was referring to is a progressive liberal. Newsom? Gary Newsom? I think I have that right. I don't like the guy. But you know what? I'll give him credit for what he went out and did yesterday, because I wouldn't have wanted to be him. So you got to understand that the government's not so much lying to you, but it is most likely leaving significant portions of the story out. And I can basically guess and tell you what those portions are. It is leaving out and not saying the models that it's going by when giving you direction. The models, the infection rates, they will be running probably tens of thousands of computer models as to the spread of this globally and in the country. And there will be a really, really bad scenario model and not so bad, probably the best model, and they will be going with something in between those. And my guess is what they're seeing is scaring the living crap out of them. All right? Because you don't see government do things that basically hurt government unless it's afraid that not doing those things will snowball to something that hurts government even more. Government does not carry out conspiracies that cost the government exorbitant amounts of money. General rule of thumb. As for conspiracy theories, globalist plot crap, this, that, and that. Look, I will tell you from my own personal experience that a lot of conspiracy theories, no matter how crazy they are usually based around some small kernel of truth. This is why over the last couple decades you have seen repeatedly conspiracy theories about things that happened decades ago turn out to be sort of partially true. Okay? Never fully true, though. Okay? Conspiracy theorists always base it, whether they're trying to make an argument to prove something to you or trying to sell you on something, there's always a kernel of truth. Okay? But do not pay any attention to stuff like it's a globalist plot to cull the population, because I can use conspiracy theory ideas to disprove those conspiracy theories. Okay, if the Bill Gates and George Soros of the world were going to cull the peasants, George and Bill, their families, friends, and friends' friends would have all been underground in their bunkers on the southern island of New Zealand last October. They're not. Number two, I am sure if the elitist globalists wanted to cull us, they could find something with a higher death rate than this. Pretty damn sure. Smallpox, something. All right? So don't listen to stuff like that. I mean, there are conspiracies going on, and they're probably true. The Chinese Communist Party has been running a conspiracy from the get-go. They probably still are. In fact, I'm not even going to say probably. They are. Trust me, they are. The government is walking a fine line, okay? They're trying to save lives without causing a panic that costs lives. The media is just being the normal American media. You got to keep in mind with the American media that in 1980, about 80 entities, corporations, companies, whatnot, owned all the media in the United States. Okay? 1980, about 80 organizations owned all the media. Radio, TV, newspapers. 40 years later, 6 organizations own basically all the media in the United States. 6. Whatever those 6 organizations want in the world, get rid of the Trump presidency, have Joe Biden as president, they are going to agitate through their media outlets to get that result. All right? So basically that covers all media, so don't really pay any attention to any of it. What should you be doing? And we're at 22 minutes again, damn it. All right. What the government says, the hand washing, all right, the social distancing. If available, you should, and if you're going to be in public, you should be wearing gloves, all right, and masks. Since they have not come out and said that it is, in fact, aerosol and airborne, that is, germs in the air around the infected person, and it is only in larger droplets from coughing and sneezing, basically anything will suffice as a mask. You double wrap your lower face with a scarf, and basically, as long as it is not actually aerosol, and they are saying that in some cases it's aerosol. There are cases in hospitals when patients are being tubed that it is aerosoled temporarily. For doctors, that is a problem. But in general, they are still sticking by that it is not aerosol, it is in larger droplets that are airborne from sneezes and coughs. If that is the case, covering your nose and mouth with anything thick enough where you can still breathe, but it's blocking airborne particles that maybe are large enough that you could see in the right light, will suffice. But keep in mind, these masks, I see people walking around with masks all over the place. But only the doctors in hospitals on news programs do I see wearing the masks and some sort of eye protection, because that is the other thing. You could catch this through your eye. You catch it through any membranes. You have membranes in your mouth, you have them in your nose, thus the masks, and your eyes. Somebody sneezes into one of your eyes, you could get sick from it. All right? So if you're going to go to the extent of wearing a mask, do the full deal and wear, whatever eye protection that you have when you're weed whacking or whatnot. Hand washing, sterilizing of surface, high traffic hand areas, doorknobs, etc. All right? Social distancing is the biggest one. Now, people in rural areas, if you have a close neighbor and you're not seeing anybody in town and you know the neighbor's not seeing anybody in town, you could instigate a conversation on it and make a pact of sorts that neither of you will break the quarantine. And then really, as long as nobody's sick as of then or showing signs, you're safe to see that person. As long as that person understands and you understand that at no time will you or that person by yourselves go and hang out in so-and-so's cafe at the center of town for an hour. You see what I mean? People in suburban areas, that's going to be near impossible. I'm surrounded by people here, and I am not getting close to any of them. The only person I am getting close to is my father, and we are the only people. The problem with that is because I spend so much time around my father, because I'm the only one that is able to be around him at this point, I cannot go into stores now. So I have my younger sister running groceries from stores when they're able to be found to my father's porch, where I take over and disinfect them with sprayed rubbing alcohol, and then it's carried in after I remove my gloves. That is extra steps that I am taking. My father is 73 years old, has pre-existing medical conditions, and one of them is respiratory. So I am taking extra precautions, and if you are living or in close contact with someone along those lines, I would suggest you do as well. I may put another video up soon here, just going over how to have contamination lines, okay? How you go about moving product from a danger zone into a safe zone without cross-contamination. And I may do that after I rethink out my old training. I'm not going to do it right now because we're at 27 minutes. Hey! So this is P.S.A, Public Service Announcement number 9. I'm going to be going now. It's amazing that we're at 9 already. I was looking back. The first one of these I actually did on the 25th of January. I don't think the president even put the block on the Chinese flights at that point. I could be wrong, but I don't think he did. So I do hope you all are well. Do take care of yourselves and be careful, be safe. Think out what you're doing, even the simplest tasks. If you're going into a public space that sees the public in general, think out what you're doing and how you're doing it before you go and actually do it. No matter how simple that is. And I'm talking little stuff like if you have to go into a store that doesn't have automatic doors, think how you're approaching opening the door to the store. Anyway, do take care of yourselves, and as always, God bless.